All right, I guess we're live. Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Hopefully everybody's enjoying the beginning of the weekend. So welcome to the first PAmining live question and answer video. I'll just start out by saying this is an idea I've had that I've been throwing around for at least a good year now. And I wanted to give it as an opportunity to connect more with my fans, the subscribers, and kind of answer some questions that I'm sure I'm going to get. So as you're joining, comment, ask some questions. I'm going to start off this video by answering a question that I can guarantee I'm going to get at some point. And, it's probably one of the most common questions I could see somebody asking me, and that's what got me into equipment in the first place. So I got interested in heavy equipment at a very young age. This is what I was told, because obviously I was around the 3 to 4 year age range, and my parents were taking me home from my grandparents' house. And on the way to where I grew up, we passed this farm field, and near the road, there was this old abandoned cable shovel that was parked, all grown into the weeds. And it's actually still there today. So I asked my parents, what is that? And my mom replied, that's a steam shovel, Justin. And from that point on, it didn't matter if it was a roller, a loader, an excavator, everything was a steam shovel to me. So then as I got older, because I still had such a fascination and loved heavy equipment, my parents started getting me those. Some of you who grew up in the 90s will remember the VHS tapes. There was a lot of them. There was, you might remember Hard Hat Harry. There was also, my favorite was called Road Construction Ahead. And in that video, there was a scene, some of you might remember it, with a Cat 245 front shovel loading 40-ton Terex trucks. That became my favorite machine. I think it was maybe just the bull clam action of the bucket, but that became the machine that I always wanted to see. So if you were to ask me, what is my favorite machine? You might be able to tell by a lot of videos, but it's the hydraulic shovels or the backhoes. It's always been, always will be. So the next thing I'll say is, as I got older with my interest in equipment, I started to always want to go to visit construction sites, demolition sites. Man, I can remember having my grandparents. This is no word of lie. Probably every day after elementary school, I'd be asking my grandparents to take me up to the local Caterpillar, Komatsu dealerships, and I would spend probably an hour playing inside the cab, monkeying around with the controls. I'd go to Walmart and buy those little disposable cameras, the ones that you would get maybe 20 shots of film. And I would take the whole camera up there and just take pictures of every machine, whether it be the tires, the buckets. I'd waste a whole camera of film at the dealership's yards. And how I got into the mining as I got older, I think just because I really think it has a lot to do with the front shovel being my favorite machine. It was a machine I always wanted to see, and I never got a chance to see it. So it wasn't until I was probably maybe 21 when I got to see my first, visit my first mining site and get to be around my first hydraulic shovel. And in doing so, I immediately said, this is what I want to do. I want to work around mining equipment because it's, to me, and at the time, I was contemplating going to school for civil engineering or industrial engineering. But once I visited the mining site, I was like, this is what I want to do. It's like playing in a big sandbox. You don't have to be worried about, perfected grades for highways and bridges. It's just go to town and move dirt, which is what I'm all about. So that's how I that's how I got into heavy equipment and how I got into the mining industry. Another question I got was, what is my occupation? So I'm a mine engineer by trade. 5 years at Penn State. So for those who are Penn State fans, I'm red and blue, or white and blue, rather. Sorry. It's been a great career path. It's led me in a great. I've been able to meet so many great people over the course of my career, and naturally, I chose coal mining because it's what I grew up around. It's what I love, and it's a lot of fun. As a mine engineer, I'm responsible for designing the entire operation. The company I work for, we have 5 open pit mines, or 5 mining sites. I design the pit design for each site, do the reserve studies, production surveys, end of month inventories, everything technical, even if it's water elevations, scheduling, material movement, figuring out what fleet we need to use on each site. That becomes my department. So it definitely kind of ties in pretty well for what I like. Actually, I'll say one of the oldest memories I have of my passion for equipment. When I was probably, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years old, my parents took me to, it was my father's work Christmas party. And it was, invite family and their kids. And at the party, they had Santa Claus. So all the kids that, showed up to the party got to sit on his lap. And of course, you got to ask, what do you want for Christmas? My answer, if you could guess, and my mom swears that I said this, I wanted a blasting box. I wanted to blow stuff up. Get to do that all the time at work. It's awesome. So it's amazing how, and for those of you who have an interest in something, follow your dream. Just be truthful for yourself, study hard, stay in school, and, just do what you like, and you'll never have to work a day in your life. So I'm seeing some comments come in now, especially about the videos. Those were great. Growing up in the 90s was really a good time to be a kid. I don't know how it is today, with rules and regulations to just visit, equipment yards and do what you want. But I know when I was a kid, it was like free roam. It was awesome. So let's see. Another question I got. If I had to pick a mine, truck, excavator, it's kind of hard. I mean, I naturally like coal mining. I've done iron ore mining before in the past. I've worked around and visited a bunch of other operations worldwide. I got to visit some gold mines in Peru. I just particularly like the coal industry. I think that's because I have a family heritage that worked in a Pennsylvania anthracite. So because of that, there's an old saying, if you've never worked in coal before, but because some of you might wonder, why do people still do that? And the answer is, once it's in your blood, that's it. You're in coal. And it's very true. So been watching ever since your original channel, Anthony says. So I started out on YouTube in 2008. I developed a channel called Mining Power, and then I later changed and switched it to PAmining. So that's really going back in the day there. Thanks for mentioning that. That brings back some memories. As far as the videos go, so I know I'll get a question, and I did actually get a couple, about how do I make the videos in one take? Let me just say this. When it comes to the documentaries, it's a huge pain in the butt. It really is, because I like to try. Of course, what I do in advance is I'll get all my history together. And going back to when I first started doing videos, I did the walk around videos on YouTube like a lot of people do, just show the machine. But I wanted to get more technical with it. and I wanted to kind of explain. And actually, I'm going to jump back now. I'll tell a story here, because this kind of is rolling into a question I know I'm going to get, and that's what made me even start doing the videos. So this goes back to when I was a kid. My parents used to buy me not only the videos, but I used to get a lot of the heavy equipment books by some of the great authors, like you might know Keith Haddock, Eric Olerman. I used to get those books for Christmas. And I can remember sitting on the floor. One of my favorite books was by Eric Olerman, and it's called Super Duty Earth Movers. I remember till this day getting that book, sitting on the floor by the Christmas tree and staring at all the pictures of all different stuff. But the pictures were never enough for me, because I'd look at the picture and I'd want to know more. I always, for example, I remember looking at, say, a Hull Pack 830, and I'd wonder, well, what does it look like from the other side? What does the engine look like? What does the cab look like? And once I got to be able to get privileged enough to be able to visit a lot of mine operations when I got older, I decided to start doing the documentary videos, because I really wanted to give, and this is 100% truthful, I wanted to give people who are less fortunate than I am, who don't have the opportunity to be around the big iron like I do, or even kids that were in the same situation that I was at one point, where you look and you imagine, at pictures. I wanted to give people the opportunity to see it in a different light. Pictures to me are great, but they don't give you the same feel as walking through the machine. And if you were to ask what's my favorite type of machine to do a walkthrough of, it's probably a shovel, an excavator, a loader, anything where I got to go through all the compartments and show you all the different components, because it's cool. It's fun. It's like going almost through a maze. It's neat to show the equipment in a way that usually you don't get to see it. Like I said, pictures are great. I like photography, but the video, to me, doing the documentary is awesome, because it can just show you everything. So that's why I started to do them. And even till this day, all the videos I do, this is always and always will be a hobby for me. I enjoy connecting with all you guys, fans. I enjoy the process of making the video. I do it because I truthfully enjoy it. And despite what some might think, I don't do this for the money. I really don't. It's more of a passion for me, and I like sharing the experience of what it's like to see the machinery up close. So let's see here. Some other comments. How long have you been into mining? I've been working in the mining industry since 2010. I started as a heavy equipment operator. So some of you might remember I did a couple of videos long time ago, driving the Euclid and the Terex trucks to give you the cab views. And then from there, I went to school for engineering for mining and graduated into working professionally in the industry. So it's been a long ride. If I had to say, I much prefer doing the technical aspect of the job. It's a lot of fun. You get to, in my profession, you get exposed to the business side of all this, and you really get educated to you get educated to how to set up the job to be profitable, efficient, make the company money. And to me, that's really cool. It's awesome to be able to be given the reins to say, hey, what elevation do we want to set the drag line so we could dig out the rest of the coal, or how much cover do we need to take off, and when do we get the first piece of coal out? I always enjoyed figuring that kind of stuff out and working in AutoCAD. So it's a lot of fun. Another question, have I been in any underground operations? Yes, I've been in, they were all coal though. So I've been around longwalls, continuous miner operations. I'm actually, next month, I'm going down to West Virginia to visit a deep mining operation down near Gilbert. And I'll be visiting, it's a continuous miner operation. So excited to do that. As far as operations go, because I know, I do venture out a little bit to different operations in different states. The one thing I can tell you guys is this: the bigger the operation, the bigger the company, the harder it is to get access. And not only sometimes get access, because where I used to work a long time ago, I remember the company, you could schedule, if you were a visitor, you could schedule to do a site visit with a tour bus. The problem with that is then they take you to the observation platform where you're looking at equipment from a mile away. To me, and I've done a couple tours in the past like that. And the problem with that is most of the time they don't allow pictures or videos. I enjoy the process of doing the pictures and videos. To me, that's the fun part. So unless I could really go there and grab a couple pictures or videos, usually I'll kind of pass on the opportunity. Unfortunately, it's not even so much doing that just for YouTube. It's also just to remember what you've seen. I've done a couple mine tours before in the past at some big operations, and I vaguely remember anything because, you're not allowed cameras or any of that stuff. So I much prefer to visit, and I've developed a relationship with a lot of the smaller mid-sized coal operations in the Appalachia that are willing to allow for me to come on site. And it's more laid back. I like that, so it makes it a lot more comfortable and easy to do the PAmining stuff out in the field. The history of the equipment is great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Keep the comments coming too. I really appreciate it. Love the videos on the Manitowoc 4600s. Thank you. That's probably one of the most popular drag lines in the state. A friend of mine told me when he was a kid out in Western Pennsylvania, this is going back probably 70s, 80s, there wasn't a hilltop that you could see anywhere nearby where you wouldn't see the dragline boom sticking off of, just because back in the day, that's what everybody in the industry used to mine coal. Draglines were the way to go. Actually, it kind of a cool story. So one of the very first mining companies to come to Pennsylvania and mine coal with hydraulic excavators was Coal Contractors from England. And when Coal Contractors came, and some of you guys from the UK will have heard of the company, Coal Contractors was owned by a big firm called Anglo American. And at the time, this is in the early 80s, they were looking at buying, expanding, and getting into different coals and across the globe. When they came to Pennsylvania, they actually looked at a bunch of the operations that are here today that still exist. And when they purchased one, they were the first company to come here, at least in the anthracite fields. They showed up with a H241 Demag, 100-ton cat trucks. Everybody in the entire anthracite industry at the time, from what I'm told, said, that company's never going to make it. No way. You don't mine coal like that. You mine it with draglines, because draglines at the time, that's what everybody used. And now look where we're at today. Almost everybody is shovel and truck. I love draglines. The problem with them is when you're doing open pit mining, it's difficult to utilize one efficiently. Draglines are better for taking off cover off a flat coal seam where you can cast into the old exhausted pit. Once you get into, like in Pennsylvania anthracite, where you're mining in synclines and tight pits, and you can't really throw the material into the old pit, you get much more flexibility with your fleet if you use shovel and truck, which is why pretty much almost everybody today uses them, except for maybe taking the final cut or a deep cut in the bottom where they'll utilize drag lines. Dave says, really enjoy the technical aspect of your documentaries. Thank you. That's, I remember going back when I first started doing these, I didn't add a lot of technical stuff. Just not long ago, I went back to all my older documentaries and I inserted chapter lists. So now if you go back and you watch any of the older ones that you're interested in, you could jump to different parts of the video, like, the engine, the undercarriage, cab. And it's funny because I was going back and it brought back a lot of memories, which brings me to another question. What is my favorite piece of equipment that I got to film? That's actually a hard one. At the time, everything I filmed was fun. And there's something unique about each machine. So it's really difficult for me to choose which one. Another question I got was Cat or Komatsu. I guess that's everybody likes to debate which one's better. So if you notice in my documentaries, I never give or really try to avoid giving opinions. There's a reason for that. I wanted my videos to be factual only, because the problem with opinions is every machine is going to be looked at differently by every operation, managers, operators all over the world. So you can't compare how a machine operates in Pennsylvania to Australia. Prime example, if you're digging soft material, that's totally different than mining and moving really hard shot rock. So I always try to avoid opinions. Same thing with, for example, let's take the Fiat FD50. A lot of guys will say final drives, worst part about that machine, junk. But then you have guys that I've talked to that say, great machine. You just can't steer with them when you get a full blade. Prime example. Again, it's like everybody has their own opinion. Every machine in every application is going to perform slightly different. There'll be things that operators like about a machine and others that they hate. I've talked to operators that hate Cat D11s. They'd rather the 475 Komatsu any day. On the same token, guys hate the 475, Cat all day, Cat D11. So it really depends on the operator preference, comfort, all that stuff. Everybody is going to feel different about a machine. So as far as comparing the two, Cat or Komatsu, in my opinion, here's the thing. From what I've seen when you go to a lot of the trade shows and even looking at, for example, let's take Komatsu. Komatsu is very much focused on technologies. Hands down, last year's Mine Expo show and even the one before that in 2016, the technologies that Komatsu introduces, it's very, very impressive. They are definitely, in my opinion, more technology driven. You'll see that with their autonomous off-road trucks. Now they're getting into autonomous hydraulic excavators. Last year's Mine Expo, they showed a PC7000 being remotely operated from Las Vegas in Arizona. It's really amazing how they could do that. It's got the name and the reputation behind it. I think the two of them really go head to head. Again, operator preference, site preference. The one thing I could tell you from my experience working in the industry, Komatsu has really gained a huge market hold because of their financing. When the company I work for was looking to put together about 5 years ago, we were looking to put together a $20 million purchase of new equipment. We quoted Caterpillar for 777s and 6030s. Then we quoted Komatsu for PC3000 and HD785s. When you look at not so much the pricing, but the warranties, the financing, the terms, Komatsu put cat to shame. Simple. That's why we ended up going with them. So a lot comes down to that too. You know, at the end of the day, money talks, right? Let's see. Some other questions. When I was about 12, Dave says, got to go to the JCB factory in England. Probably wouldn't be allowed. And that's the thing. You know, again, it's probably changed a lot. When I grew up, I mean, most dealerships were very welcoming to have people, younger people, to go and, you know, see the inside, climb on the equipment. I can't ever remember getting chased. It might be different today. So let's see some other questions. What is one piece of equipment I would like to film? I got asked. There was a couple pieces of equipment that I really wish I got the chance to film over the years, and unfortunately, it just never worked out. The first was, and probably my favorite, if I had to pick a machine that I'd really want to film even now, it'd be the Reclamation 1000 shovel. There was one at one time in New Jersey, and when I went to visit to see if that machine was still there at the stone quarry, it had been chopped up for scrap. So I was too late for that one, probably by maybe 5 years, I would say. Another that I missed by maybe 6 months to a year, I missed the Michigan 675 loader that was parked. The last one in existence was parked in Michigan. And that was another machine. When I arrived there to see if the machine was there and to film it, the owner told me last summer I cut it up. So that would have been another machine that I really wish I had the opportunity to show on YouTube. A lot of comments coming in. Oh, another question that I know some people asked, or that was asked to me, how much experience is required to go from operating something small to something big? And the answer to that is, I mean, it might not be that hard today. The mining market, at least in coal, is booming. You know, I can remember like a lot of the companies around here, maybe 10, 15 years ago, they wanted the top-notch, most experienced operators out there. And now today, it's, you know, a lot of people just can't find enough people that want to do this kind of work anymore. We hire people all the time and train them. You know, and that's the only way you get a good operator, is you got to give people the chance. I've always been in favor of giving somebody young the chance on equipment, because you never know how they're going to turn out to be. So going from something big to small, I mean, naturally, unless you have the experience on, say, a drag line or a big shovel, you're not going to just walk onto an operation and hand in a resume with zero experience and get put in the cab. Those are machines that usually, if you've had experience on some smaller ones, maybe they'll start breaking you in slowly. Probably the most common machine that most of the inexperienced hires get put on, it would be off-road truck, which trucks are, you know, after a while, I did that long enough to know that it gets boring very fast. So let's see some other questions. Ernie asks, why not show some of the equipment that maintains the big iron? So that's a good question. Years ago, some of you might remember I used to do maintenance videos, and I like to show you know, anything from getting tire changes to welding on a bucket to doing something. And lessons learned. Don't post that kind of stuff on Facebook, on the internet, because guaranteed you'll get somebody complaining that there was something in the video that MSHA saw that shouldn't have been, you know, a safety hazard of some kind. And that's something that, you know, I could tell you when I was younger, I mean, I like to just, I was young and dumb, you could almost say. I'd film anything. I loved it. Today, I've gotten so much more laid back about what I show. And it all comes with really the experience of being around this over the years. Okay. Give you guys an example. If I go on an operation and they're running, let's say, a D11, and the operator's there with the doors open because the air conditioning don't work, I'm not filming that. You got to have respect for your operators, number one. You can't, and that's, I really can pride myself with saying that, you know, you want to always, at least for me, I always check to see what the setup is. Is it, you know, something I want to put on the internet? Is it something that, you know, is going to cause an issue? So you got to be mindful of that, which is why I stopped doing the maintenance videos. And in most cases, nothing that was ever shown in the maintenance videos was wrong. It's just, you could be amazed at how many little things that you would never expect could cause an issue. What would you say are the best operations to visit in Pennsylvania? Mike wants to know. There are a ton of them. There's, you know, the soft coal industry on the western part of the state has a lot of. There's so many companies I can't even think of to give out a list of names. But there's a lot of mining companies in this state. It's one of the biggest coal producers. Pennsylvania is also one of the leading aggregate producers too. What's your favorite small piece of equipment to film or run? Ooh, that's a good one. I would probably have to say front end loader. That's, you know, yeah, I'd probably have to go with a loader on that. To me, loaders are just cool to watch. It doesn't matter if they're small or big. So I got a question about mining in Lackawanna. So I'm in the Northeast region. Our operations are down near the Hazleton area. And it's actually funny because years ago, one of the things that got me interested, well, let me just say this. So I never had an interest when I was younger in underground mining. I always liked the heavy equipment. That's what got me into mining to start. But I could tell you that the working in this industry over the years really got me more and more interested in underground mining, especially the history in Pennsylvania. I mean, it's the same thing if you go down to West Virginia. I mean, some of those states have history in coal mining going back to the 1800s, and that stuff alone is just really cool. Illinois Basin surface miner. So I visited the Illinois Basin last year. It was a lot of fun. I did a visit to Peabody Energy, and it was awesome. Let's see. So I don't think I ever finished talking about how I make the videos in one take. So, because I know that was something I'm going to ramble a lot and go back and forth. So as keep posting the questions for those who are joining, I'll try my best to answer them. And, I'll see if I get to some of the questions. So I try to get all the equipment done in one take. That's always my goal, because then it's ready to go and I could just do minimal editing work and throw it on YouTube. But 99% of the time that doesn't happen. It's a lot of work. It is. I've spent, and I know this for a fact because there's been times I've showed up to film a machine at maybe 9 o'clock in the morning and gotten done at 11. 2 hours to film one machine. You can call me crazy, but it's absolutely happened. And it's just it's a lot of pride for me. I really pride myself on doing a good job. I don't like to, I don't like to stutter or, I'll give you an example. So if I go to film a machine, the sequence I usually go through is when I first get to the machine, I'll go over the entire piece of iron. I'll see what compartments are available to access. I'll plan every move I do, from something as small as opening a compartment, because you'd be amazed how difficult it could be to lift a compartment up, and maybe the compartment's too heavy. Maybe I need to use my knee or something to hold it. So it's all little things like that I do in advance, just to have a smooth flow through as I'm filming. But that's pretty much how it's done. Caterpillar high wall miners. That's probably behind me. It's actually shown now. One of my favorite machines. They are just so cool. I have a couple videos to share in the upcoming future of them. They're just such a wild machine. So common in West Virginia, Kentucky, and they were even a few at one point in southwestern Pennsylvania. They're just awesome. I really appreciate all the comments too. I mean, after doing this for as long as I have, it's nice that, I could still be here 12 or whatever it's been years later, and still connect with you guys. Again, this was an idea I had for a long time, and I really wanted to connect in a different way. And, it's nice to see the fan base growing, and especially those who have been with me for so long. Really appreciate it. What is my favorite cat loader of all time? I'd probably have to go with the 994s. Are really cool. They're cool, but I do like the 992s as well. I prefer the G series, and I like the mono boom design. I always thought that was pretty cool. A lot of what is my personal favorite is because it's something that I either wanted to really see as a kid and never got the opportunity to see it. And I know the 992G was one of those machines. That was something that I can remember the first time I went to see one. I don't even remember how young I was when I saw it, but it was just, it was so thrilling for me. Actually, the video I think is still on the channel. It's one of the old that's another thing. I I wish I had the better camera quality back in the day, because I did get some really good views of stuff. But when I started out doing filming work, I mean, I was happy to have had a camera bought for me. And at the time, the 640 by 480 resolution was pretty much the standard, unless you spent hundreds of dollars on big bulky cameras. I mean, now here we are today, I could get 4K 8K on my S22. So it's just night and day compared to when I first started out. But I definitely wish I had better quality a long time ago. What do you think about Demag? So I'll give you my personal opinion. When I first got into this, and I loved I loved seeing the shovels and everything up close. I was all Demag. Again, because that's what I got exposed to first. So to me, it was like, oh yeah, this is the best shovel. There's so many around here. Now, if you were to ask me what I think is the best machine, O&K. And here's why. Those machines the older ones at least, the hydraulic systems on them are notorious for leaks. They have, even the new ones, I hate to say it, but some of the new Komatsus, bad cooler design. The way the coolers swing out on the sides of those machines, and it's an issue that those machines have. So where the coolers are mounted, if a line breaks, it's sucking the oil through the hydraulic cooler. So now you have to shut the machine down, blow out the coolers. And in doing so, when you open the cooler doors to swing them out, almost guaranteed the cooler lines themselves, because they're bent at such a hard angle, they snap. So you got to end up replacing them. It's just, they're a good machine. Komatsu has made a lot of improvements to the Demag line, mainly in the technologies of the cab improvements. That's where, again, as I mentioned before, you see a lot of improvements with Komatsu in their technologies. If you look at the PC 5500, the 8000, the 3000, they're running on the technology from Demag. They're still basically the exact same machine. We have 3 PC 3000s, and those machines, everybody that works on them says it's a 185S with a new paint job. The basic machine itself is the same. Of course, you have the cab, with all the latest and greatest controls, and a lot of safety sensors and stuff like that. But the overall base machine, the design of it, hasn't changed in over 20 years. That being said, with the technologies that Komatsu introduces, you will see the PC 2000 and the 4000 getting the most of those technologies. And that's because they are the best selling models by Komatsu. That's why the 4000, the 2000, they're up to dash 11s. The 3000 is probably the least popular. Of course, I'm sure some of you may know there's a good chance that machine might get replaced with a newer designed unit in the future. But that machine, the 3000, is still running off Hydropilot technology in the cab. That it's still pilot joysticks. Where you go to the 4000 and up, it's all electronic. It's very old school technology that they still have in a lot of those machines. Glad you decided to stream. Well, thank you. I'm glad I am too. Is everybody having fun? I hope we're having fun out there, because I know I definitely am. And one thing I want to throw out there. So I've been contemplating about doing somewhat slightly different type of, or introducing a different type of video work to the channel. And I'm never really quite sure what would be the best thing to bring forth. I'd like to do something. I'm not really sure what would be more interactive or what you guys would like to see of the mining industry. But throw your ideas out there because I'm all about it. I know I definitely will be doing a new video on blasting. And I wanted to touch on a little bit of the science behind it and do some more, show a little bit more how the blast patterns themselves are timed. And this goes back to probably my most popular video after all these years is Let's Blast. So if that's what the fans and you guys like seeing, you know, I'll touch on some more blasting stuff. But again, I am looking for some additional ideas of some different type of videos to go along with the actions and the documentaries. So throw your ideas out there. Have you found that Hitachi are generally lighter machines compared to Liebherr and Komatsu? I can't really comment on that without comparing a specific model to the same class machine. Hitachis are a machine that they're, in my opinion, there's operations that absolutely love them. In fact, I will say the second shovel that I ever had the chance to, no, I'll take that back. It was the third shovel that I ever had a chance to play around with a little bit in the bank was a 3500-3. And that, what it's still till this day is one of my favorite shovels. That machine was so responsive, even though it was pilot control. It was smooth. To me, that was a pleasure to sit in the seat. I got to play around with some other machines over the years too. 285 Demag. Those machines are, if it's the true Demag setup, the controls are reversed. So it throws a lot of operators off. But the delay between the hydraulic, because they're pilot control, is also a little bit difficult to get used to. When you move the joystick, because it's going right to the valve, the control valve, there's a delay in the movement. So it's kind of impressive when you see some of these super skilled operators making them machines sing while they're, and the motions are just perfect. It's actually, it's not when you move the lever, the machine immediately does that. With them older machines, a lot, they have a delay between the movement of the joystick and the actual movement of the attachment. This guy says, love your videos. Remember watching the Euclid and Letourneau videos. Yeah, that's a truck. The Euclids definitely had the market hold in Pennsylvania. If you look back, even going to the early 1900s with strip mining, you know, you'll see fleets of small 10-ton, 15-ton Euclid trucks. They definitely had the market hold. And there's a reason for that actually too. It's not just here. It's a good chance it could be, you know, in a lot of other states or countries. Euclid was a pioneer of developing an off-road truck. Caterpillar came into the game very late, you know, and because of that, you had Euclids and haul packs. They had that market hold, and Caterpillar came in a lot later than that. Here's an interesting question. What goes into the process of land reclamation after a mine goes through? Okay, good question. So what happens there is The surface mine is essentially a moving void space. As you're advancing and, clearing land and taking your cut, if you will, think of a mine as almost like a slice of bread. You start from the top, you work your way down. Then you go back to the top, start at the top, work your way down. You keep moving. And as the pit is advancing, you're filling in behind you. And today, at least in Pennsylvania, with full cost bonding from the Department of Environmental Protection, it's impossible to leave any operation today completely wide open and just pick up and leave like they did in the 50s and 60s. You can't do that. You have to post a bond in advance. So, for example, if I design an operation, and this is something I've done in the past, if we acquire a new property, and it's my job to start from ground one, lay out the first initial cut. It's my job also to then tell the Department of Environmental Protection the maximum void space or pit size that the job will incur. And based on that, that is what we will bond, or a company is going to bond to. When you bond based on the amount of spoil that you will need to fill in that pit based on its maximum size. And there are some clauses and some leeway there, so you don't have to get yourself in a major big financial issue. But if you know that the maximum void size is going to be 5 million cubic yards, the DEP is going to want to see where is all the material to fill that void space going to come from. And then, based on an inflation calculator, you have to bond, and every year or every few years, it changes with inflation. You have to bond per cubic yard. So if you're going to bond 5 million yards of spoil to fill that void in case the company goes bankrupt, $5 million or 5 million cubic yards times whatever the cost per cubic yard is. Let's say it's $4.75 a cubic yard. Do the math. That's what you got to post to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection before you even can begin to mine. And that's to ensure that if the company goes bankrupt, they can subcontract another company to come in and fill the void space in. So it's a lot different than it was a long time ago. And with that, reclamation today, night and day compared to 20 years ago. So today, reclamation laws in Pennsylvania require that you bring the land back to what's called AOC, approximate original contour. They go off of the 1889 contour maps that were drawn of areas across the state. They want you to restore to that once the job is done. Additionally, there's multiple different clauses of different kind of trees that they want planted. Years and years ago, you could get away with just planting all pine trees. Now they like a mixture of hardwoods to get planted along with grass. And sometimes, another thing, you have to figure out how the terrain of the ground is going to be once the job is reclaimed. Where's all the water going? Are you going to build wetlands? So there's a lot that goes into planning the reclamation of a mine site. And at the end of the day, pretty much every company out there today, everybody's trying to do their best. And that's why mine reclamation really has come a long ways. There's areas for example, in this state, and I'm sure other areas, where if you didn't know that a surface mine was there at one point, you would have no clue. A lot of those big mines out in the Midwest, even in the Appalachia, they're in old farm fields that are now, have cattle on them. Like, you would never almost know that there was a mine there at one point because companies do such a great job today reclaiming the land. Is it mostly overburden? Yes. So you separate the material. We separate the material out. The rock goes in the bottom. When you're drilling and blasting the rock, all that goes back into the void space. And then when we pre-strip the clay on top, that goes to cap the top of the shot rock at the grade that we want for reclamation that's agreed upon by the state. And then you could get into seeding and planting trees. Mentioned about discussing how to plan a mine site. Yeah, actually, that's a good idea for a series of videos. And I tried to do that a little bit in the past. Some of you might remember some of my logging videos with the Tiger Cat. I said this is the first phase of surface mining, which it really is. But yeah, if you are asking to get into the technical CAD design work, sure, that could be a series of videos. Mike asks, did I see the Komatsu 1850 loader at Mine Expo? I did. I can't comment on its performance. I haven't worked around it. I have been around a few big Letourneaus. That's another machine that some guys love them, some guys hate them. You know, I've heard so many mixed opinions on those machines. I did work around a couple 1850s. They were the older style. And my experience was electrical nightmares. But they were also the older Letourneau machines. I'm sure they've made a lot of changes to their electronics, and they're probably way better machines today. But there are some operators that absolutely love them. So I got a question, weird question. Do I think the early Komatsu dozers were copies of Caterpillars? I don't think so. Naturally, there's always something about once you go back in time to a certain a time period, a lot of the equipment looks the same. Like if you look at the cab designs of Euclid trucks to haul pack trucks, a lot of similarities you'll see with the square design. So you know, if you're saying like maybe a Cat D9G compared to some of the older Komatsu tractors, sure, there's going to be some similarities, but I mean the basic concept designs of most of this equipment is pretty much all the same. It's up to the manufacturer to change how they want to do things. So if you look at, for example, hydraulic excavators, and one of the reasons why I love showing them in documentaries, it's my favorite machine to really show, is because everyone is so different. The way the engine's laid out, the way the pumps are laid out, you have the inline power systems, twin engines. Sometimes they turn them, to face the right side of the machine, the back. There's always something different about it. So no, I wouldn't say that the dozers are copies. Especially if you look at the Komatsu 455. I mean, it's a twin transmission dozer. It had a lot of its own unique perks. The taconite iron ore mine, Aaron says, the taconite iron ore mine my grandpa worked at in Wisconsin became a large lake. This is true. And this is something to touch on the reclamation. So back in the day, it was not uncommon. There were no rules and regulations. The company could come in and strip mine, open pit mine, and just leave the area, which is why you have a lot of abandoned quarries, mine sites. They're just left wide open. Granted, even though today, I will say there are clauses you can work with the state to allow, if, for example, a quarry to become a lake after they're done mining. I'm sure there's flexibility there. That's something that could be worked out upon. But you look at how far along reclamation's come today. It's night and day compared to how it was a long time ago. I mean, a lot of these old abandoned mine sites, they become major safety hazards for the public because there could even be open, if it's remnants of deep mining, there could be open mine shafts, tunnels, I mean, and one thing that is huge in Pennsylvania and also in the Appalachia is off-roading. This state is huge for ATVs, quads on the weekend. You probably hear a lot in the background in a lot of my videos. When you're off-roading and that quad path just dead ends and there's a 200-foot high wall there of an abandoned strip pit, that's not uncommon because a lot of the big places to ride are on abandoned mine lands. So if you look at what a mining company does today with posting the bond in advance to start a job and to remine it, it's actually a benefit to the taxpayer. Because if you look at mine reclamation that's done just for the sake of doing it, for example, the federal government annually awards the state of Pennsylvania X $1 million for abandoned mine land restoration projects. That money comes from the taxpayer. And I think, if I'm correct, this year, I think Pennsylvania got awarded, I want to say $250 million. They'll take that money, subcontract it out to restore and reclaim areas and grade areas that have old pits and, they're remnants of past mining. When a mining company comes in and offers to remine that area, and when I say remine, keep in mind, a lot of these areas that were mined 100 years ago, operators would only scratch the outcrop or maybe just mine down 60, 100 feet. Chances are there's still a lot of coal on these sites, but the ratio to mine it was uneconomical at the time. Or why go deeper when they could just follow the outcrop of coal and only move 60 foot of cover instead of 100 foot of cover, right? So when a company today offers to go back and remine, we're offering to go deeper, take out the coal, and then restore it. That's on our dollar as the company or any mining company. So that's not the taxpayer expense. The taxpayer expense is when the federal government awards and uses taxpayer dollars to restore these areas. So at the end of the day, it's another plus to having mining still going on. It does work to restore a lot of areas that are left in disarray. This guy says I sound very different compared to the documentary videos. Well, I don't know what to say. I guess it's just getting older. What can I say? A lot of those videos. Oh, greetings from Germany. Greetings from Pennsylvania. So a lot of the videos that were done, I mean, if I go back, some of them were done 5 years ago. And I always am actively making new ones. But usually I'll post some of the older ones first. So I guess there's a slight difference to my voice tone over the years. Would I consider doing a series of videos on old underground mining practices? Yeah, I would definitely consider doing something like that. The historical side of the mining industry, especially anthracite or even soft coal, it is fascinating. And it's something that, as I said before, I got interested in that only from working in the mining industry. I work with the old mine maps every day. All the operations in Pennsylvania anthracite, they were all previously mined at the turn of the century because Pennsylvania anthracite fueled the American Industrial Revolution. And over time, after 1917, the market started to decline. World War II, of course, brought a boost back to the anthracite industry. But by then, you had soft coals, which were becoming more common, other fuels, diesel, gas, oil, and it kind of killed the whole industry. At one point, anthracite was mined specifically for steam power and for making steel. Today, it's all industrial marketing that this coal goes for. So all these companies in eastern Pennsylvania supply anthracite to sugar industry, water filtration, steel, rubber, plastics. It's really unique what the coal is used for. Which I guess I'll jump on that bandwagon, even though I said to myself I don't want to go down that path, but I'll say it. So many people out there today, and it's a true fact. If you know anybody that works in the mining industry, ask them if they've ever talked to somebody and they got somebody asked, oh, where do you work? And you say a coal mine. How many people out there have ever been told, oh, do they still mine today? It's amazing. A lot of people still think that we don't mine, and they don't have really, they're not brought up to knowledge of what coal today is used for. So when people talk about stopping mining, for example, anthracite, it'll never happen because there's a niche, a special market for that. As I said, it's not a coal that's used for power plants or steam. It's used for various commodities, selling for sugar manufacturing, water filtration. Anthracite, Pennsylvania anthracite, is anywhere from 85 to 95% pure carbon. Where if you look at bituminous coal, you might be down in the 60% carbon range. And of course, bituminous coal is way better for coking than anthracite. Anthracite doesn't coke well for use in steel. But what they use anthracite for in the steel process is what's called injection carbon. So when they're making high strength steels like titanium, they need that carbon content from Pennsylvania anthracite to inject into the mold to strengthen the steel. Again, this is just one example of what coal's used for today. There's a lot of uses for it besides, power generation. I got a question: why large stripping shovels aren't in production anymore? The 1950s, 60s was the booming, the dawn age of the super strippers, maybe even going into the 70s. That's back when, coal was king, especially in soft coal. And the biggest reason you don't see any of them machines today is there aren't many reserves left that are economical to justify using a machine of that size. I mean, a lot of them where those machines worked were on massive, massive jobs, where they had shallow cover. It was just, they wanted the bigger bucket to just move more material faster. A lot of those reserves aren't there today. Aside from that, if you were to try and purchase a machine like that today, it would probably be hundreds of millions of dollars. Today, it's so much more flexible to use smaller equipment, and the mining industry, I think, has really learned that. Just with, for example, mining anthracite coal. I'll go back to that. 50 years ago, any of the smaller coal veins above the big thick coal veins here were shot through and thrown out as waste. They didn't want to mine them. They only wanted the big thick coal seams. Today, we recover all that stuff because chemically it's just as good. If not, you could blend it with the better coal to make a specific ash product. So to do that, you can't really utilize super massive equipment. You need the smaller fleets for that flexibility, which is why you'll see in a lot of my videos, small excavators, maybe like a 375 cat digging coal. It's better to clean it. you can recover more of it. It's hard to do that when you're using mega equipment. Another question, how do springs, rivers, streams affect mining? Well, good question. So it all depends if the stream, I mean, this is something that goes to the state. They'll determine if it's a protected freshwater stream or if it's something that you could, a stream or channel that you could relocate. But chances are, if it's fresh water, you're not touching it. I mean, the state is very, very strict on their environmental protection for streams and wetlands. I mean, when I started with this company, we did a wetland relocation project. That was 1 year of permitting work where we had to show, what was in the wetland and what was going to be involved to take it from there and move it to a new location, and where that location was. How's the water going to filter in? I mean, it's a big process. The state really doesn't like you tampering with wetlands or any kind of water streams. What is the most popular type of coal in your area, Dave Axe? Pennsylvania is bituminous, semi-anthracite, and anthracite coal. And the western region part of the state is primarily all bituminous soft coal, and the eastern part of the state is the harder anthracite coal. Question: was your most interesting abandoned equipment find? That's a tough one. I mean, I always get really excited when I find old, large cable shovels. That's always something I like to find, just because they're so cool. They're you don't see 4, 5, 6 yard cable shovels anymore that were the predominant means of surface mining back in the day. So that's probably one of my favorite things to find. Dart 600 loader documentary. That will be coming up soon. Have I been out to see Big Muskie's bucket? No, I have not actually. I couldn't remember. A few years ago, I was out that way, and I should have made the extra detour to go and see that, but I never did. And it's something. It's on my list of stuff to check out. A question about the Marion 8700 documentary. I have, it's planned. I would like to go and redo those videos. So stay tuned. There'll be something cool coming up in the future. I'd like to redo that machine. I've actually tried to slowly work at redoing a lot of the older documentary videos and just make them better. Again, when I first started doing those videos, I didn't have a lot of the it's not that I didn't have it. I didn't think to put in, specifications on engines, pumps, stuff like that. But now I guess that's kind of become my trait almost. So I want to add that into those videos, and it's always my goal to make the videos as informative as possible. So a lot of the older videos I like to, work to redo just to make them better. Where do I get the information for the videos? I've been collecting literature on equipment for a long time. Funny story. So the one salesman that I deal with on occasionally here works now for Komatsu. At the time, he worked for Cleveland Brothers Caterpillar. This is going back 20 years ago. And when I first ran into him in my professional career, he says to me, I remember you. You were that kid that your grandparents would bring in and you'd be taking all the literature out of the dealership. And I said, yeah, I guess that's me. But yeah, it's funny. I still run into some people that remember me from when I was a little kid, and I'd go to the dealerships, and I literally would raid all of the sales literature on the big equipment. And I mean, back then, I remember going in the Komatsu dealerships and they'd have sales literature on Demags. It was cool. And I still have a lot of that literature. And I have way too much literature, actually. It's a lot of stuff. And but that's what I use to put together the details on the equipment. And what I do is I'll go through the sales brochure. I'll pick out what I want to talk about, and I'll word it how I do. So I actually do script. Pretty much almost the entire documentary is scripted. I write it out, and then when it's game time to go and film, it's my job to get it right. Have I ever seen the Terex Titan in British Columbia? No, I have not. I want to go and see that. And I'd also like to see the big Wabco that they have up there too. I think they have I think it's a 200. I think there's a 3200 up there if I remember. I definitely want to see that. That'd be one I would do a documentary of. And it's funny because I know like a lot of the machines that I've filmed over the years, they're now gone. They've been either chopped up for scrap or sold. Prime example was the KL 2450 that was in northern Minnesota. That truck, that Wysita truck, got scrapped once the mine actually decided to advance through that lookout point, which was open for visitors. There was the KL 2450 was there, and the M100 unit rig. Both those trucks got the axe probably maybe 3 to 4 years after I filmed them, I would say. So it's amazing, when you do this, you don't realize at the time, but a lot of this equipment, you see it and you think it's going to be there forever, and it's not. Rolling Coal asks, you got any hard hat stickers or interested in opening any gear? Yeah, so that's something I'd like to do also. And that's an idea I've been throwing around. I wanted to do a merchandise line. I was throwing around the idea of doing stickers, hats, T-shirts. The problem I ran into with that I actually had some logos professionally designed to go on the back of shirts. The issue, I want to do it. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to have a clothing line out there for you guys. The issue I run into that with is the fact that I haven't found the right platform that will do all the work essentially for me. I can almost guarantee if I try to do it myself, well, I'm just not, no possible way will I have the time to ship out, that many shirts and stuff that fast. I spent a lot of time researching how to do merchandise selling through YouTube. And the one way I really wanted to set it up was through Amazon, just because it's easy. Everybody trusts Amazon, right? Who doesn't have an Amazon today? You go on, buy the shirt. The problem I ran into with that is unless you're an Amazon merchant or you get accepted into their selling store, so you can become a merchant through them. Unfortunately, then you have to, if you don't get that, which is by approval only, then you have to use another platform that links to Amazon. And if you do enough of research into this, you'll see that it's kind of almost a little bit of a headache, because it's not a steady flow where the person who's the platform that's selling the shirt is then printing it, selling it, and marketing it also. And again, there are platforms that do that, but I don't want to use some site like, one of the many that are out there, because I look at it this way. I don't know if I'd want to put my credit card information in on a site that I'm not even familiar with or heard of. I'd rather use a big platform like Amazon, for example, or eBay, because everybody's been there, used it, trusts it. A random weird site that has a link at my description, I just feel that it's not going to attract a lot of people. I think a lot of fans are just going to be kind of nervous about that. So that's kind of why I haven't taken that jump into merchandise yet. I'd like to get it to the point where it's a good name, trusted platform that can do everything, because I just know it's going to turn into a huge project for me to try and do by myself to, order, package, and ship everything. But don't worry, that's something that's in the works. Hopefully it comes up soon. Where did I get the idea for my channel's logo? That's easy. Pennsylvania is called the Keystone State. So the logo for the state is the Keystone. And then I just made it black like coal and put PA in the center. That's kind of where that came from. How do you find all the machines for your videos? Back in the day, and boy, this brings back, talking about this brings back some memories. I remember sitting when I was younger on websites like Bing, Google Maps, and looking around at different areas to see where different machines were located. And, you could use the satellite view to zoom in and see the operations and see what was there. I also remember before cell phone, I was printing out maps or hand writing myself directions on how to get to some areas to film some stuff or visit operations. But that's how I kind of did that. And of course you learn a lot over the years, working with numerous people now professionally in careers. I mean, you get to learn what operations have a lot of different equipment. Who is, what companies are ordering something new. I mean, I gotta say, hands down, this has been a really fun ride. I've made a lot of great friends, a lot of great connections with people. And I'll tell you, the most fun with this whole thing is you guys. because it's the interaction that really makes it fun to still be doing this. How did you get into mining? Long Train asks. So I answered that one at the beginning of the live stream. You'll have to go back and watch that. This video will be available. I'll make it up there so everybody can go back and watch it. And again, I'd like to definitely do more similar content, and I'm also open for different ideas for videos, either whether it's bringing in, like I said, maybe some of the engineering aspect, something more technical, mine design, planning, anything you guys are interested to learn about. I don't want to make things too dry. There's a lot of statistics I try to follow on YouTube where I try to meet that balance to maintain people's attention. So anything that you guys have ideas on for different kind of content, let me know. Shoot it in the comments, the questions, and I'll see if I can make something happen. So I think I'll do one more question, and then we'll call it for the day. So let's see. Any plans to do dealer manufacturer equipment tours? Paul asks. I never really gave that a thought. It's definitely something I could probably consider doing if I get the right approval from people to do that. I would say, that all depends if companies are going to be willing, to have their whole factory on camera. I when I do, even till today, I still do all this as pretty much myself doing all the filming work. And I also have a lifelong friend of mine that you all probably are aware of on Facebook, who does all the pictures and posting on Instagram, because I said, look, there's no way I could possibly keep up with doing all that kind of social media stuff. So I asked my friend Bob to do all that. We both went to school for mine engineering. So he's equally as enthusiastic as I am with the equipment, though he likes doing the picture work and pretty much always has liked doing the pictures, where I've always been more the video guy. So we kind of make a great team when we go out and visit operations together. And it's kind of great to have that relationship to do the social media on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. All right, I guess I might as well do one more question. Favorite piece of heavy equipment to operate. So I would say hydraulic excavator or shovel has always been my favorite. It's just fun to, I think it's just since I was a kid, that's what I always liked. And, it's probably very, it's probably easy for you guys to see based on the videos. That's probably my favorite. It's cool to take you through them, to show the insides of them. And, you know, I think operating is definitely involved. You're definitely focused on what you're doing. And it's just cool. So on that note, hope everybody has a great rest of the day, the weekend, and definitely going to be looking forward to doing another live stream. Again, follow my channel, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube here. There'll always be new stuff. Again, I enjoy doing the videos. You know, we don't do this for the money. You know, it's purely just a hobby. It's an interest. I never tried to make this into a full-time career. I do it for the fun of it. And, you know, I enjoy making the videos to show with you guys who can't be there to see it. So until next time, PA signing off. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Let me know on some new kind of content you guys have ideas for. And I'll see you out there on the mine site.